Hi Year 6! So this week I've decided to record a topic video. I've gone for topic because a lot of the maths and the English curriculum we covered whilst we were in school, and the topic is all completely new, and there are quite a few things that you might need a little bit of help with and lots of vocabulary to understand. So today we're going to get started on lesson 6 and lesson 7 of your topic home learning pack that looks at the use of propaganda during World War II. So it would be helpful if you had the pack handy so you could look at the images that I'm going to talk about. Now, the first thing we need to understand is what is propaganda. Now, propaganda was used a lot during World War II and during World War I and is still used now. And it is when information is shared in a way that impacts people's beliefs and encourages them to believe the messages within it. And it was used a lot in Britain and America and Germany during World War I to influence people's beliefs and their ideas. So if we have a look at lesson 6, we're going to look at some pieces of propaganda and see if we can work out what messages these pieces were given. So on my iPad, rather than a big interactive whiteboard, this is one of the pieces of propaganda in your pack. And in this piece we can see we've got a man who's a soldier and a young boy, and there's a caption that says, "Leave Hitler to me, Sonny, you ought to be out of London." Now, if we think about what happened to lots of children during World War II, we know that many children were sent away from places like London because during the air raids and bombings, cities like London and Manchester were more frequently targeted. And people like this young boy and thousands of other children were sent to the countryside as it was believed they were safer, and this was called evacuation. So this piece of propaganda is encouraging parents to send their children out of cities to safer areas in the countryside where they were less likely to be bombed. Now, if we have a look at a different one, so in your pack you have also got this one. So I'll just bring it a little bit closer so you can see what I'm talking about. Now this one we've got a woman who stood in the middle, and in the background we can see some aeroplanes, and the caption this time says, "Women of Britain, come into the factories." Now if we think about the time, it would have been most likely that men would work in factories and men would do lots of the labour jobs, and at this time the government were actually trying to encourage women to come into factories. Now why might that be? What do you think? So yeah, lots of the men were fighting for the country and they were all around the world. So the government were trying to use propaganda to persuade women who would previously have been at home with the children looking after the family. They were trying to persuade women to come into the factories because they needed the women to help them to make ammunition and to even in food factories and production, so that the army could keep fighting and so that the country kept running even though thousands and thousands of men were fighting. And without the women in the factories, then the country couldn't have kept running the same. So the message in this piece of propaganda is that the government wanted women to come and work in the factories to take over the jobs of the men whilst they were fighting the war. So in your pack in lesson 6 there are lots of other sources of propaganda. Let's see if you can work out what the messages are in these sources.